Chapter 6 Samskaras. Gautam says that before Upanayana, a boy may act, speak, and eat as and what he likes. Haradatta explains that it does not mean that he can kill a Brahmana or drink liquor, but that there is no restriction, although he be a Brahman's son, to his selling what is forbidden to a Brahmana to sell, or he may eat onions and garlic or stale food, or may eat 4 or 5 times a day. Up to the time when they begin to cooked food, infants do not become impure. According to some teachers, up till they are 1 year old or till they are not able to distinguish the cardinal points. Another view is that till Upanayana. Aparakha also explained that a boy may eat the leavings of the food of his parents, but he could not eat or drink what would cause loss of caste, as in that caste he may become unfit to have the samskara of Upanayana performed on him. The Sara gives the view of some that in case an infant touches a candle before it reaches the age of taking cooked food, only water need to be sprinkled on it. Before kola, akamana need to be done by it, and after kola, a bath would be necessary. Vash DHS 2.6 quotes a verse of Haryata to the effect. Up till investiture with the girdle of Munja's grass, there is no action, there is obligatory on him. As long as he is not born against for Vedic study, he may be in his conduct like a Sudra. This verses occurs also in Bodh DHS 1.2.6 and Manu 2.171 and 172. Daksha 1.34 says. Till a boy is 8 years old, he is like one newborn and only indicates the caste in which he is born. As long as his Upanayan is not performed, the boy incurs not blame as to what is allowed or forbidden to be eaten, as to what should be drunk, as to what he should or should not speak, as to telling a falsehood. Upanayana is the foremost of the samskaras. Says a person is known as a Brahmana by birth. He is said to be a Divija on account of samskaras. He reaches the position of Vipra by learning. He is called Shrutriya on account of all these three. Parasara contains a fine image to illustrate this. Just as a work of painting gradually unfolds itself on account of the several colors with which it is drawn, so Brahmanayan, the status of Brahmana, is similar brought out by samskaras performed according to prescribed rite. Therefore, it is now time to speak of samskaras. The word samskaras hardly even occurs in the ancient Vedic literature, but the root kar means some, and the past passive principle samskrata occur often enough. In Rig 5.76.2, the word samskara is applied to gharma. The two ashwins do not harm the gharma that has been purified. In Rig 6th 28.4 we have the word Samskratat, and Rig 8.33.9 has Ranaya Samskrit. The word samskara is used several times in the sutras of Jaimini. It generally means some purificatory act in a sacrifice. Example, in Jaimini's 3.8.3, the word is applied to the actions of shaving the head, washing the teeth, and paring the nails on the art of the sacrificer in Jyotishurnama. In 9th 3.25, the word samskara is applied to proksana. In 10th 2.49, it is applied to the shaving of the head and face. In Jaimini 6.1.35, the word samskara stands for Upanayana Sabara explains samskara as that which being effected makes a certain thing or person fit for a certain purpose, and the Tantra Vartika says that samskaras are those actions and rites that impart fitness, and it further says that fitness is of two kinds. First, it arises by the removal of sins, second, by the generation of fresh qualities. Samskaras generate fresh qualities while the past brings about the removal of taints. He who performs such sacrifices as Jyotishanoma and others had certain blemishes in him due to not doing in this life or a previous life duties laid down for him or doing what is forbidden. If they are not removed, they obstruct reward of the sacrifice, even if it be entirely free from any defects. Whatever as they produce, the experience of their own fruits that are opposed to the sacrifice. The word samskara does not occur in most of the Graya Sutras, but it occurs in the Dharma Sutras. The principal matters that fall to be discussed under samskaras are the purpose of samskaras, the classification of samskaras, the number of samskaras, the procedure of each of the samskaras, the person authorized to perform them. First, as to the purpose of samskaras, Manu says in the case of Divijatis, the sins due to seed and the uterus are erased by the homas performed during pregnancy and by Jata Karma, Kola, and the tying of the girdle of Munja's grass. This body is rendered fit for the attainment of Brahma by the study of Veda, by vratas, homas, by the vrata called Trividya, by worship, by generation of sons, by the performance of the 5 daily sacrifices, and by sacrifices. Harita, as quoted in the Samskara Tattva, says when a person has intercourse according to the procedure of Garbhadhana, he established in the wife a fetus that becomes fit for the reception of the Veda by the rite of Pumsavana. He makes the fetus become a male by the ceremony of Simantu Nayana. He removes from the fetus the taint derived from the parents and the accumulated taints due to seed. Blood and womb are removed by Jata Karma, Namakrana, Annaprasana, Kudakrana, and the Samavartana. By these 8 samskaras, purity arises. The exact significance of samskaras in the development of higher human personality was left rather vague in our authorities, and their treatment of the purpose of samskaras is not very elaborate or exhaustive. The samskaras had been treated from very ancient times, unnecessary for unfolding the latent capacities for development and as being the outward symbols or signs of the inner change which would fit human beings for corporate life, and they also tended to confer a certain status on those who underwent them. If we look at the list of samskaras, we shall find that the purpose of samskaras were manifold. Some, like Upanayana, served spiritual and cultural purpose. They brought the unredeemed person into the company of the noble. They opened the door to Vedic study and thus conferred special privileges and exacted duties. They have also psychological values, impressing on the mind of the person that he has assumed a new role and must strive to observe its rules. Other samskaras like Namakarana, Annaprasana, and the Nishkramana were more or less of popular nature. They afforded opportunities for the expression of love and affection on or for festivities. Other samskaras like Garbhadhana, Pumsavana, Cimento Nayana had also mystical and symbolic elements. Vivaha was a sacrament which brought about a union of two personalities into one for the purpose of continuance of society and for the uplift of the two by self restraint, by self sacrifices, and mutual cooperation. These samskaras were divided by Harita into two kinds, Brahma and Deva. The samskaras of Grabhadhana and the others which are described only in the Smritis are called Brahma. And the person who is purified by performing these attains equality with sages, stays in the same world with them, and is joined with them. Yajnas with burnt offerings and sacrifices in which Soma is offered and are called Deva. The last two varieties, that is, those in which there is burnt offering and those in which Soma is offered, are dealt with in the Shruta Sutras, which have been left outside the purview of this work. The Graya Sutras deals with samskaras in two different sequences. Many of them begin with Vivaha and then proceed to Samarvartana. Some, like the Hiranyakeshi Graya, Bharadwaja Graya, and Manava Graya, begin with the Upanayana. Some samskaras like Karnaveda and Vidyarambha are conspicuous by their absence in the Graya Sutras but are aided by later Smritis and Puranas. The following is a list of all the samskaras usually so called in most of the Smriti works, together with a few remarks against each as to the work or works in which each is mentioned or described. The samskaras are arranged in the sequence of the times at which in a man's life they are performed, beginning from Garbhadhana. Ritu Sangamana, mentioned in VAC 1:1 as distinct from Garbhadhana, it calls it Neksha also and describes it in 3.9 and Garbhadhana in 3.10. The VAC comments the samskaras with Neksha. Garbhadhana, Neksha, Chaturthi Karma or Homa, Manu Yaj 1.10.11. Vishnu DH.S employ the word Naiskha as equivalent to Garbhadhana. In the Sankhyana Graha takes the place of the rite called Garbhadhana elsewhere, and there is no separate description of Garbhadhana in these and some similar Graha Sutras. Pumsavana occurs in almost all the Graha Sutras in Koth in Yaj 1.11. Garbha Rakshana, mentioned in the Sankhyan, it seems to be same as the Anavalo Bhana, which according to the Aishwalayana occurs in the Upanishad and which is described in 1.13.57. The samskaras from Garbhadhana to Upanayana alone were absolutely necessary in the case of all twice born persons. The samskaras of Sanana and Vivaha were not obligatory, as a man was allowed to become a samsyasin immediately after finishing the period of studentship. The Samskara Prakash enters upon an elaborate discussion as to whether Jata Karma could be performed for a child, that is, neither for a male or for a female. Chapter 7, Upanayana. This would literally mean leading or bringing near, but the important question is near what? It appears that it originally meant taking near the Akarya. For instructions, it may also mean introducing the novice to the stage of studenthood. Some of the Graha Sutras bring out this sense clearly, that says the teacher then makes the boy say, I have come up to Brahmacharya, led me near, led me a student, impelled by the good Savitra. The Manava and the Kathaka also use the Upanaya for Upanayan and Aditya Darshana and Kathaka says that Upanaya, Monji Bandhana, Batu Karana, Vreta Bandha are synonymous. A few words about the origin and development of this most important samskara would not be out of place here. Comparison with the ancient Zoroastrian scriptures and the modern practices among the parishes of India tend to show that Upanaya goes back to an Indo-Iranian origin, but that subject is outside the scope of this work, confining ourselves to Indian literature. We find that already in Rig 10th 109.5 the word Brahmachari occurs. O gods, all pervading one moves as a Brahmachari, pervading all. He is only one part of the gods. Brahaspati secured by that a wife Jew who was taken by Soma. The word Upanayana can be derived and explained in two ways. First, taking near the Acharya. Second, that rite by which the boy is taken to the Acharya. The first sense appears to have been the original one, and when an extensive ritual came to be associated with Upanaya, the second came to be the sense of the word. Such an ancient work as the Apastamba DHS.1.1.1.19 says that Upanaya is a samskara laid down by revelation for him who seeks learning, or the sutra may mean. It is a samskara brought about by imparting the Shruti to him who seeks learning. This would mean that Upanayana principally is Gayatri Updesha. This appears to be suggested by the Vedic passage quoted above. He created the Brahmana with Gayatri, the Kshatriya with Tristup, the Vaishya with Jagati, and by Katyayana Shrota. One should initiate the Brahmana with Gayatri. Jaimini also propounds the view that Upanayana is a samskara and has seen result, that is, thereby the boy is brought near the teacher for learning Veda. Rig 13.8.468 is a verse that clearly indicates that some of the characteristics of Upanayana described in the Grihya Sutras were well known even then. Here in Unnayanti we have the same root that we have in Upanayana. This mantra is employed in the Upanayana by several Grihya Sutras, that is Ashv 1.20.8, who employs it for making the boy circumambulate, and part 2.2 prescribe that the mantra is to recite it when trying the girdle around the boy's sweat. In the other Vedas and in the Brahmana literature, there is ample and material to show what the characteristic features of Upanayana and Brahmacharya were. The whole of the Atharva Veda 11.7 is a hymn containing hyperbolical laudation of the Brahmachari and Brahmacharya. The very first verse may be cited as an sample. The Brahmachari instantly covering rooms in the two worlds. The gods have the same thoughts of grace and favor about him. He fills his teacher by his austerities. In the type they are 3.683, 10.11. There is a story of Bharadwaja who remained a Brahmachari for 3 parts of his life, and to whom Indra said that in all that long period of Brahmacharya he had mastered only an insignificant portion of the Vedas, which were endless in extent. The story of Nabha Nedishtha, son of Manu, who was excluded from the ancestral property at a partition made by his brothers, narrated in the 8 Vyasa 684 that he was a Brahmachari staying with a teacher away from his father's place. The Sat BR Excel 5.4 contains many and almost complete details about the life of Brahmacharis, which bear a very close similarity to those taught in the Grihya Sutras. A brief summary is set out below. The boy says, I have come on to Brahmachara and lets me be a Brahmachari. Then the teacher asks him, what is your name? Then the teacher asks him near. The teacher takes hold of the boy's hand with the words, you are a Brahmachari of Indra. Agni is your teacher. I am your teacher. And then addressing the boy by his name. Then he consigns the boy to the elements. The teacher instructs him, drink water, do work, put a fuel stick, do not sleep. He repeats the Savitri. Formerly it was repeated a year, then at the end of 6 months, 24 days, 12 days, 3 days, but one should repeat to the Brahmana boy the words at once. The teacher repeats it to him, first each pada separately, then the half and the whole. Being a Brahmachari, one should not eat honey. The same work says that the Brahmachari should fetch Samiris every day for worshipping fire and back, and that if he does not do so continuously for 7 days, he has to undergo Upanaya again, and that the lady of the house should daily give alms to a Brahmacharin with the idea that may not deprive her of her wealth of merit due to Ishtapurta. It also says that Brahmachari should not sleep on a cot, should not engage in singing and dancing, should not roam about, should not spit about, nor go to a cemetery. It appears from the above and from the Upanishads passage set out immediately below that originally Upanayana was a very simple matter. The would-be student came to the teacher with a samadhi in his hand and told the teacher that he desired to enter the stage of studentship and begged to be allowed to be a Brahmachari living with the teacher. There were no elaborate ceremonies like those described in the Grihya Sutras. The word Brahmachara occurs in the Katha UP 1.1.15, Mundaka 2.1.7, Chandogya 6.1.1 and the other Upanishads. The Chandogya and the BRUP, probably the oldest among the Upanishads, furnish very valuable information that some ceremonies were required before a young boy was admitted as a student. Even in Upanishadic times is clear from the statement in the Chandogya 5.11.17.63 that when Ashwapati Kekya was approached by Prasinalasa, Upamayava and 4 others who carried fuel in their hands and who were grown up householders and theologians. In the most ancient times, it is probable that the father himself always taught his son. But it appears that from the times of Tyas and the Brahmanas, the student generally went to a guru and stayed in his house. The age when Upanayana was performed is not expressly stated in the Upanishads, except in the case of Shvetaketu, who was 12. The period of studenthood was usually 12. The proper age for Upanishads. The ASV Georgia 1.19 to 1.6 says that a Brahmana boy should undergo Upanaya in the 8th year from the birth or from conception, a Kshatriya in the 11th year, a Vaishya in the 12th, and that to the 16th, 22nd and 24th years respectively. For the 3 Varnas, it cannot be said that the time for Upanayana has passed. Apastamba Sun 16.1, Bodh 16.5.2 and Bhar 1.1, Gobila 16.10.1 and Grihya Sutras Yaj 1.14. Apastamba DH.S.1.1.1.19 expressly say that the respective years are calculated from the conception. The Mahabharata also refers to the rule that a Brahmana Upanayana is to be performed in the 8th year from conception. In some Smritis, Upanayana is allowed to be performed even earlier or at different ages. That is, Gautama prescribes that Upanayana for a Brahmana is in the 8th year from the conception, but it may be in the 5th or 9th according to the result desired. And Manu, 2.37 says that if spiritual eminence is desired, then Upanayana may be performed in the 5th year for a Brahmana, in the 6th year for a Kshatriya, if there is a desire for military power, in the 8th for a Vaishya, and if there is a desire for endeavor to accumulate wealth. The auspicious times according to the Apastamba JR and Apastamba DH S.1.1.1.19 are Vasanta, Grisma, and Sharat for the three Varnas. The Bhajyar 1.1 says that the Upanayana for a Brahmana should be performed in Vasanta for a Kshatriya in summer or Hemanta for a Vaishya in Sarat, in the rainy season for a carpenter, or in the Shishira for all. Sabhara in his Bhashya on Jamini 6.1.33, where Upanayana is denied to Shudras, quotes Vasante Brahmananam Upanayata as a Vedic text. Later works introduced very intricate rules about the proper months, Tithis, days, and times for Upanayana. It is neither possible nor very necessary to go into these astrological details, but a few words must be said, as in modern times Upanayana is performed only in accordance with these rules. Vradgarya laid down the 6 months from Magha were the proper months for Upanayana, while others say that 5 months from Magha are the proper ones. Then 1st, 4th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 13th, 14th, 15th Tiths are generally avoided. It is stated that Upanayana should not be performed when Venus is so near the Sun that it cannot be seen when the Sun is in the first degree of any zodiacal sign. Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and Mercury are respectively the presiding deities of the Rig Veda and the other Vedas. Therefore, the Upanayana of those who have to study these Vedas should be performed on the weekdays presided over by these planets. Among weekdays, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are the best. Sunday is middling. Monday is the least suitable, but Tuesday and Saturday are prohibited. Among the nakshatras, the proper ones are Hasta, Shitra, Savati, Pushya, Dhanishta. There are other rules about nakshatras with respect to those who follow a particular Veda. One rule is that all nakshatras except Bharani, Kritika, Magha, Vishakha are good for all. The moon and Jupiter must be astrologically strong with reference to the boy's horoscope. The rule about Jupiter probably arose from the fact that Jupiter was supposed to rule over knowledge and happiness, and as Upanayana was meant to be the entrance for Veda study, Jupiter's benevolent aspect was thought to be necessary. If Jupiter and Venus are not to be seen owing to the nearness to the Sun, Upanayana cannot be performed. Some said that a person Upanayana should not be performed in the month in which he was born. Others restricted the prohibition to the Paksha of the month in which he was born. There are other rules about the Lagna which are not set out here. There are other prohibited astrological conjunctions like Vyatipata, Vedruti, and all. Garments worn and Upanayana. A Brahmachari had to wear two garments, one for the lower part of the body, another for covering the upper part of the body. Upper somebody H. S says that the garment for a Brahmana, Kshatriyas, or Vaishyas Brahmachari is respectively to be made of hemp, flax, ajina. Some teachers prescribe that the lower garment should be of cotton but colored reddish yellow for Brahmanas, dyed with marrow for Kshatriyas, dyed with turmeric for Vaishyas. Dhanda. There is some divergence of view about the trees of which the stuff was to be made. A.S. Vijar says a stuff of the palasa wood for a Brahmana, of Udambara for a Kshatriya, and of Bilva for a Vaishya, or all the Varnas may employ stuff of any of these trees. The Apasamba says that the stuff should be of palsa wood for a Brahmana, of the branch of the Neogrodha tree for a Kshatriya, of Badara or Udambara wood for a Vaishya. While some teachers say that the stuff should be made of a tree without reference to any Varna. Mikhala. Some of the Sutras further prescribe that the girdle of the Munja grass should have 3 strings to it, and the grass should have its end turned to the right, and the knot of the girdle should be brought near the navel. Manu says that there may be 1 knot or 3 or 5. Procedures of Upanayana. In order to convey an idea of the rites of Upanayana in the days of the Grihya Sutras, the ceremony as contained in the Ashvagya Sutra is set out in full. Let him initiate the boy who is well decked, whose hair is shaved, who wears a new garment or an antelope skin if a Brahmana, Ruru skin if a Kshatriya, goat skin if a Vaishya. If they put on a garments, they should put on dyed ones, reddish yellow, red and yellow. They should have girdles and stuffs. While the boy takes hold of his teachers, the latter offers in the fire and seats himself to the north of the fire with his faces turned to the east, while the other one stations himself in front with his face turned to the west. The teacher then fills the folded hands of both himself and of the boy with water, and with the verse we choose that of Savitra. The teacher drops down the water in his own folded hands on the water in the folded hands of the boy. Having thus poured the water, he should seize with his own hand the boy's hand together with the thumb, with the formula by the urge of the god Savitra, with the arms of the 2 Ashwins, with the hands of Pushans. I seize thy hand, oh, so and so, with words. The teacher should cause to look at the sun while the teacher repeats, Good Savitra, this is the Brahmachari, protect him, may he not die. Having wiped the ground round the fire, the Brahmachari should put a fuel stick silently, since it is known what belongs to the Prajapati is silently, and the Brahmachari belongs to Prajapati. Some do this with a mantra. To Agni first have brought a fuel stick. To the great Jata Vedas by the fuel stick mayest thou increase, O Agni, and may we throw Brahman Shaha. Having put the fuel stick and having touched the fire, he thrice wipes off his face with the words, I anoint myself with luster. It is known, for he does anoint himself with lustrous. May Agni bestow on me insight of springs and lustre. Having waited upon Agni with these formulas, the student should bend his knees, embarrass, and say to him, recite, sir, the Savitri. Seizing the student's hand with the upper garment and his own hands, the teacher recites the Savitri. first pada by pada, then hemistics by hemistics the whole verse. He should make him recite as much as he is able. On the place of student's heart, the teacher lays his hand with the fingers upturned with the formula, I place my heart up to duty to me. May the mind follow my mind. May you attend on my words single minded. May Brahaspati appoint three up to me. Having tied the girdle round him and having given him the stuff, the teacher should instruct him in the observance of a Brahmachari with the words, a Brahmachari art those say water. Do service, do not sleep by day. Depending on the teacher, learn the Veda. A few points of interest and divergence may be noted here briefly. It is remarkable that ASV, Apastamba, and several other Shutrakaras do not say a word about the scared thread, while a few like HIRGR 1.2.6 says that the boy already wears the Yajnopavita before the Homa begins. While the Bodh 2.5.7 says that the boy is given the Yajnopavita and then made to recite the well-known mantra, the Yajnopavita is extremely scared, and the Vak mantra says that the teacher gives the upper garments to the boy with the words, a person was given and Abhivadaniya name either derived from the nakshatra of birth or from a deity name or the gotra name. This was necessary for several purposes. The teacher had to know that the boy came from a good family. He had also to address him by name. It is wrong to suppose from the story of Satyakama Jabala that only Brahmanas were admitted to Brahmachara. All Smritis, even the latest, contemplated that their three castes had the right to learn the Veda. It is one thing to have a right and another to exercise it. Probably very few Kshatriyas care to submit their sons to the rigorous discipline of Brahmachara as laid down in the Smritis and cared much less for Veda studies. In the Mahabharata and in the Kadambari, it is said that the princes were taught in a special house constructed for the purpose, and teachers were paid handsomely and brought there to teach instead of the princes going to the teachers. It is not possible to, for want of space, to show how the greatest possible confusion prevails as to the order of the various components of the ceremony of Upanayana, but a few striking examples may be given. Besides, the same mantras are employed by different Shudras for different purposes. For example, the mantra Sarswali etc. is employed by Appasamba at the time of taking the stuff by the boy, while ASVGR 1.22.19 employs it at the time of putting a fuel stick on fire. Later writers went on adding mantras and details. On the day prior to the Upanayana, the Nandi Shraddha was performed as said by Haradatta. Also may be performed the previous day or on any day within 7 or 10 days of the Upanayana. Then before the actual Upanayana, there is a worship of Ganpati and of Kula Devtas, Punaya Vekana, the worship of maims, and the consecrations of the Mandapa Devtas. Up to the act of making the boy dine with his mother, it is the father who does everything. Thereafter, it is the Akara who does the rest. Yajnopavita. A few words must be said on the history of Yajnopavita from the ancient times. Among the earliest reference is one from the Theais.Estor 2.5.11.1. The Nivita is for man, the Prasinivita for Petros, the Uvavita for gods. He wears it in the Upavita mode, thereby he makes a distinguished signs of the gods. In the Tai.br.1.6.8 we read, wearing is the Prasinivita form he offers towards the south, for in the case of Petras, acts are performed towards the south, disregarding that one should wear in the Upavita form and offer in the north only. Both gods and Petras are worshipped. The three words Nivita, Pranisivita and Upavita are explained in the Gobila JR 1.2.24, which says, raising his right arm, putting the head into, he suspends over his left shoulder in such a way that it hangs down on his right side, thus become Yajnupavitam. Passing his left arm, putting the head, he suspends it over his right shoulder so that he hangs down along his left side. In this way, he becomes Prasinavitim. A person becomes Prasinavitim only in the sacrifice offered to the mains.